Barak Shimcha b'fikol. Chai, may all living things bless the name of the Holy One always and forever. How are you, my holy sisters and brothers? Let's light up the darkness. That was Rabbi Eitan Katz singing a melody written by Shlomo Carlebach from Eitan's first album of Shlomo Carlebach Nigunim called Unplugged. Okay, got a lot to cover today. First, a big thank you to Michelle Palter, who is sponsoring today's learning in honor of Judy Cooper. May you both, you Michelle and your honoree Judy Cooper, be showered in blessings, you and all your loved ones. And we say amen and thank you for enabling us to share more Torah with more people around the world. Okay, yesterday I've mentioned a couple times, but we haven't gone back to it since May 20th, that as we're working our way through Tractate Yoma, the laws of Yom Kippur, the 6th volume of the Talmud, and today we're on Daf Nun Zayin, page 57. And we're working our way through the way Yom Kippur was observed when the temple was standing, primarily following the actions of the high priest on Yom Kippur. And we also read a very, very abridged version of the duties of the high priest, the divine service that he performs on Yom Kippur. We still read it in the Yom Kippur Machzor, the prayer book that we have on Yom Kippur. So we've been kind of working our way through that, the avoda of the high priest on Yom Kippur. And so we'll continue that. And so he would say, I beg of you, Hashem, I have erred, been iniquitous. So that this is the high priest reciting his confession on Yom Kippur when the temple was standing. I beg of you, Hashem, I have erred, been iniquitous, and willfully sinned before you, I and my household and the children of Aaron, your holy people. I beg of you, with your name, Hashem, forgive now the errors, iniquities, and willful sins that I have erred, been iniquitous, and willfully sinned before you. I and my household and the children of Aaron, your holy people, as it is written in the Torah of Moses, your servant, from your glorious expression, for on this day he shall atone for you to cleanse you from all your sins before Hashem. The Kohanim, the priests, meaning the other priests, not the high priest, and the people standing in the courtyard, when they would hear the glorious, awesome name, the ineffable one, emanating from the Kohen Gadol, from the high priest's mouth, in holiness and purity, a name that was only pronounced aloud on this day, on Yom Kippur, they would kneel and prostrate themselves, give thanks, fall upon their faces, and say, blessed is the name of his glorious kingdom for all eternity. He too would intend to complete the name simultaneously with those reciting the blessing, and then he would say to them, you will be cleansed. May you, in your abundant goodness, arouse your mercy and forgive the tribe of your servants. He would and now we continue with what he was doing. He would take a sharp knife and slaughter the bull. according to the proper procedure. He would accept the blood in a basin and hand it to the one who would stir to prevent its congealment until the time of the sprinkling, lest it become congealed and the atonement be prevented. He would gather glowing coals by scraping with a shovel of reddish gold, which was light, thin-walled, and long-handled. Into it he shoveled 3 calves of coals. They brought him a ladle filled with fine incense. He scooped up incense with both hands and emptied it into a ladle. He quickly grasped the shovel in his right hand and the ladle in his left, and his footsteps were heard between the curtains as he neared the staves of the ark. He placed the incense between them and caused their smoke to rise, and then he left. From the young the young priest who had been stirring it, he took the blood. He immediately re-entered the Holy of Holies, and he stood between the protruding staves, those wood poles on either side of the Ark of the Covenant. For the appeasing sprinklings of blood, he would dip his fingers, and he would whip the blood outward with his count, 1 motion upward and 7 downward, and so he would count 1. 1 and 1, 1 and 2, and the way this sounds in Hebrew, v'chein hayamoineh, achas, achas ve'achas, achas u'shtayim, achas ve'shalosh, achas ve'arba, achas ve'chamesh, achas ve'shesh, achas ve'sheva. He would run and place the basin of blood on a stand and slaughter the he-goat. Lovingly, he would accept the blood in a holy basin. As was his custom, he would stand at the designated place near the ark and count the sprinklings, as he had done with the blood of the bull. And so he would count 1, 1 and 1. V'chein hayamoineh, achas, achas ve'achas, achas u'shtayim, achas ve'shalosh, achas ve'arba, achas ve'chamesh, achas ve'shesh, achas ve'sheva. He would hurry to the stand and put down his basin and take the bull's blood. He would exert his feet to run, and he would stand outside the curtain that separated between the Kadosh and the Kadosh Kedoshim, the Holy and the Holy of Holies. At the embroidered curtain, which we're going to be talking about today, he would sprinkle with the same procedure as toward the ark's cover. And he would then rush and repeat the sprinkling with the blood of the he-goat. He would return and mix the bloods and atone upon the gold altar, 7 sprinklings on its surface and 4 on its corners. Eagerly he would come to the living he-goat and confess to God the people's careless and wanton sins. And we'll leave it off there, and then we'll come back as we're working our way through in this volume of the Talmud to when he deals with the goat that's going to be sent out into the wilderness, and then we'll continue reading the Avoda in the Mox or in the prayer book of Yom Kippur. All right, let's get into our daf. So here, it's page 57 today. We're starting at the bottom of the B side of 56. The Mishnah taught, and the high priest sprinkled from the blood of the bull on the curtain opposite the ark from outside the Holy of Holies. The sages taught, and he shall make atonement for the sacred place because of the impurities of the children of Israel and because of their transgressions, even all their sins, and so shall he do for the tent of meeting that dwells with them in the midst of their impurity. That's Leviticus 16:16. What is the meaning when the verse states this? Just as he sprinkles in the innermost sanctum, in the Holy of Holies, so he sprinkles in the sanctuary. So just as he sprinkles in the Holy of Holies, so does he sprinkle in the Holy. Just as he sprinkles in the Holy of Holies, where the Ark of the Covenant was, in the tabernacle and in the first temple, and where its position was, but the ark was missing in the second temple, so he comes out and sprinkles in the sanctuary toward the partition, which was a curtain, 2 curtains in the Second Temple period. And he repeats the same type of sprinkling. And that's why we just read it there. He does it for the bull and then for the goat in the Holy of Holies. And then he does it for the bull and for the goat in the sanctuary. And furthermore, just as in the innermost sanctum he sprinkles once upward and 7 times downward from the blood of the bull, so he sprinkles in the sanctuary. And just as in the innermost sanctum he sprinkles once upward and 7 times downward from the bull of the goat, so he sprinkles in the sanctuary. The last part of the verse that dwells with them in the midst of their impurity teaches that even when the Jewish people are impure, the divine presence is with them. Now, this could have both a literal meaning and a more spiritual meaning. The literal meaning would be that even when the people were tameh, that they were ritually impure, because there had been a war, for example, and so many people were involved in burying the dead, that the majority of the nation might have actually come into contact with ritual impurity. Nevertheless, they would perform the Yom Kippur service. But also on a more spiritual level, now when we're all tameh, since the temple fell and we don't have the possibilities of purifying ourselves from corpse impurity, because we don't have the sprinkling waters that rely on the ashes of the red heifer, but also we're in a much lower state than we were when we occupied the Holy Land, and so we're kind of, spiritually impure in that way. And we have sinned and we lost our rights to the temple, to have the temple in our midst, etc. Nevertheless, the covenant between God and the Jewish people is eternal. It is forever. It never is broken. And so even when we are in this lower state than we were then, the connection to God remains whole. We skip down a bit onto the A side of page 57. A sage taught, when the high priest sprinkles the blood, he does not actually sprinkle on the curtain, so we're talking about in the sanctuary now, but opposite the curtain, meaning in front of the curtain. But according to this sage, the blood doesn't actually reach the curtain. Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Yosei, said, I saw the curtain in Rome. And then he's going to talk about what he saw on this curtain in Rome. So before we continue on today's page, let's hear about this story. Now, Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Yosei, he was the son of Rabbi Yosei, the son of Halafta. And Rabbi Yosei was a great, very important Tana. He merited to have 5 sons who were also sages in their own right. And Rabbi Elazar was sort of the greatest of his sons, the greatest of the sons of Rabbi Yosei. He was very respected by his father and the other sages of the period. And Rabbi Elazar was also the younger colleague of his father's close friend, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, the Rashbi, who is credited with authoring the Zohar, the foundational text of Jewish mysticism. It was with Rabbi Shimon that the following well-known incident happened when Rabbi Elazar accompanied Rabbi Shimon to Rome to plead with the authorities to annul their anti-Jewish decrees. This is found in the Talmud in Tractate Me'ila on page 17, A and B. Let me switch to this volume here. Okay. Where am I? It happened once that the Roman regime enacted a decree that the Jews not observe the mitzvahs of Shabbos, circumcision, and family purity. In other words, that they would undermine all Jewish observance and make it almost impossible to be a faithful Jew, an observant Jew. The rabbis said, who shall travel to Rome and annul the decrees? Not even who shall travel to Rome and endeavor and attempt and try to annul the decrees. But the rabbis had great confidence that, look, if a regime is making all the Jews in the promised land stop being Jewish, somehow this is going to fail. So who is actually going to go on this mission to annul the decrees? Let Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai go, for he is accustomed to having miracles performed on his behalf. And after him, who shall go? Who shall accompany him? Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Yosei. Rabbi Yosei said to them, and were my father, Halafta, alive, would you say to him, give your son over for execution? In other words, if my father were alive, you would not tell him to send me, his son, on such a dangerous mission, for he never would have allowed me to go. So too, I will not allow my son to go. Rabbi Shimon said to him, and were my father, Yochai, alive, would you say to him, give your son over for execution? In other words, just as I am going, the dangers of the mission notwithstanding, so too Rabbi Yosei should allow his son to go. Rabbi Yosei replied, it is not the Roman authorities that I fear. It is Rabbi Shimon himself. What? Like, you can understand why the rabbis would be nervous of taking a trip to Rome to argue with the emperor that he should release these laws, recant these laws that are going to prohibit the Jews from observing Judaism in the Holy Land, and that could be a dangerous mission. Plus, you have to go on a boat, and how dangerous that is. But why would Rabbi Yosei say that it's dangerous to accompany Rabbi Shimon himself? And therefore I will go instead. Why? For I fear that perhaps Rabbi Shimon will cause some sort of misfortune to befall my son. My son is young, and he responds hastily, and Rabbi Shimon, who is known to be intolerant of even the slightest inappropriate behavior, might come to curse my son and cause his premature death. So Rabbi Shimon accepted upon himself that he will not cause Rabbi Elazar to be punished, and Rabbi Yosei allowed his son to go along with him. So we can remember the story of the Rashbi and his son, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai and his son. Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai spoke actually, kind of nastily about the Romans. And the fact, there's an incident where he and two other rabbis were talking about all of the construction that the Romans had undertaken in the Holy Land. And one of the other guys said, well, it's kind of nice. It's terrible that the Romans are here and oppressing us, but at least they build nice roads and bathhouses, etc. And Rabbi Shimon answered, anything that they do for themselves. They don't do it for the people who live in the lands that they conquer. And word of this got back to Rome, and Rabbi Shimon had to flee for his life. So he and his son ended up hiding in a cave for 12 years. While they were there in that cave, they were sort of miraculously sustained by a carob tree, I think, that grew nearby, and they were in a spring of water. And what did they do? They basically just plumbed the esoteric secrets of the Torah. They just had a they just basically meditated on the Torah and on God and God's goodness and the creation all day long for 12 years. And they sort of broke on through to the other side. And that's why Rabbi Shimon was able eventually to, pull together the teachings that would become the Zohar. So he was like on a completely different level than all the rest of us. It wasn't exactly prophecy. In a sense, it was almost even higher. It was like he just had access to that upper spiritual world. When he came out, when that emperor died and the decrees against Rabbi Shimon were, canceled, and he and his son were able to leave the cave, he came out and he saw that, regular people were doing regular things, like Jews were just farming. And he became so angry that like his eyes, would burn people and burn things, and he was a temperamental person. And so then an angel of God said, go back in your cave. You may have learned some secrets about the universe, but if you're going to unleash, curses and like X-ray vision type of thing on innocent people, then you don't belong out here in the world. And they went back in the cave for another year, and then that mellowed him out somewhat. but he was still, temperamental, as we see. And Rabbi Yosei didn't want to send his son, Rabbi Elazar, on a long journey with Rabbi Shimon until Rabbi Shimon promised that he would not get angry or curse Rabbi Elazar. Okay, so he got that promise from him. Now they set off. So Rabbi Shimon accepted upon himself that he will not cause Rabbi Elazar to be punished. And Rabbi Yosei allowed his son to go along with him. Even so, Rabbi Shimon caused him punishment. For as they were going on their journey, they were asked for a source of a certain law. And Rabbi Elazar knew the correct answer, and he quickly muttered it under his breath. Now, Rabbi Shimon is his elder, his superior, his teacher. Rabbi Elazar has to adopt the posture of a disciple, of a student. He has to walk a little bit behind Rabbi Shimon, and he certainly would not, when the two of them are asked about a certain matter of Torah law, he doesn't answer unless Rabbi Shimon invites him to speak. You never answer a halakhic question, a Torah law question, in the presence of your teacher. It's a sign of great disrespect to your teacher. Rabbi Elazar, who was so quick and smart and wordy, he just couldn't help himself, and he just kind of said the answer, just blurted it out. It's just his instinct to do that. Rabbi Shimon didn't like it. Rabbi Shimon heard him and said to him, I see that you are a Torah scholar. However, because you acted improperly by disrespectfully answering before me and ruling in my presence, let the son not return to his father. On account of this curse, when they were later traveling on the ship to Rome, Rabbi Elazar contracted ascara, a fatal disease in which the throat gets blocked until it is impossible to breathe. Rabbi Shimon then remembered his promise to Rabbi Yosei not to harm his son, and he prayed for Rabbi Elazar's recovery. A miracle occurred, and as Rabbi Elazar was lying sick on the floor of the boat, a sailor accidentally stepped on his throat and dislodged the blockage, and Rabbi Elazar recovered. They continue their journey. When they arrived in Rome, a powerful demon came out to greet them and asked them, is it your will that I come with you and use my powers to help annul the decree against the Jews observing Shabbos and circumcision and family purity in the land of Israel? Where am I? Rabbi Shimon wept. He cried. Why? Because God sent a demon to help him in his mission rather than an angel. And Rabbi Shimon said, even for the maidservant of our forefather, meaning for Abraham, right? When Sarah told Abraham, you have to send that boy away, meaning Ishmael, the son of Hagar, Sarah's maidservant. At the time that Sarah thought she would never have a child, she gave her maidservant to Abraham to sort of father a child with her that would be sort of credited to Sarah, and that was Ishmael. But eventually Sarah was allowed to have a son, right? And that was Yitzhak. And then she saw that Ishmael was in some way mistreating Yitzhak, and she said to Abraham, you got to send them away. Abraham was the kindest, most, hospitable person and would, go bend over backwards to take care of a stranger. The pain of sending his own son, Ishmael, away with his mother was terrible for Abraham, but he was instructed by God, listen to your wife. And he did. So he sent Ishmael and Hagar away. Hagar in the wilderness with Ishmael thought they were going to, die of thirst in the desert. And then an angel appeared to her and said, don't be afraid. You're going to be saved. And your son Ishmael will be a prince and the father of a nation. And have 12 sons and, be a mighty warrior and, be a father of a mighty nation. And Ishmael is the father of all the Arabs. But what Rabbi Shimon is talking about here right, is that even the maidservant, which is a kind of slave, basically, so even the slave of our forefather merited to see an angel, but he, Rabbi Shimon, who's at such a high level that when he curses somebody, they are cursed, and when he prays for somebody, they are saved, even so, he doesn't merit to have an angel appear to him, but rather a demon. So rather than be so happy, that this demon has been sent to help him achieve the, like it's not like he summoned the demon. God sent this demon to do a job that was needed to do to save the Jewish people so they could, keep observing Judaism in the Holy Land. Nevertheless, Rabbi Shimon was weeping for the low state that the people had come to, that even one of their sort of, loftiest representatives, meaning himself, would not merit to get assistance from an angel proper, but only from this demon. So even the maidservant of our forefathers' household, for her an angel appeared 3 times in Genesis 17, yet I did not merit an angel even 1 time. However, let the miracle come in whatever manner. So the demon went ahead and entered into the body of the daughter of the Roman Caesar, the king of Rome. And she became demented and started screaming, "Bring me Rabbi Shimon, the son of Yochai." When Rabbi Shimon arrived at the palace, he was brought to the daughter, and he quietly told the demon to leave her body, and the demon immediately departed. In gratitude for healing the girl, the members of Caesar's household told Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Elazar, "Ask of us any request, and it will be granted to you. Go into the royal treasury and take whatever you want." Presumably take any one thing that you want. Otherwise, they would have taken the menorah, and all the other vessels from the temple. But they say, take one thing, whatever you want. They brought them into the treasury, and there they found the document with the decree, canceling Shabbos, circumcision, and family purity laws in Israel. They took it and tore it up. While in the royal treasury, Rabbi Elazar was able to see some of the items taken by the Romans from the Holy Temple when they sacked and destroyed it. He saw the curtain in the temple that divided between the Holy and the Holy of Holies, which still had many drops of blood on it from the Yom Kippur service. That's what we're about to talk about. That's why I'm reading you this story. It's what he learned when he saw that curtain. While he was there, he also saw the tzitz, the golden headplate worn by the high priest, and the remnants of King Solomon's magnificent throne. Additionally, he saw the preserved gnat that had afflicted Titus, the Roman general and later emperor, who had personally destroyed the temple many years earlier. And then he boasted about how mighty he is, right? That he defeated, the God's people and destroyed the temple. And God says, "Oh, you think you're going to brag about that? I will destroy you with the tiniest of all creatures." And a gnat flew inside Titus's ear, buzzed around his brain, and just molested him there with an incessant buzzing inside his head that would never go away. It drove him crazy. And eventually it killed him because it was eating of his brain in his head. It was a very long-lived gnat. And eventually when he died, it had grown to a huge size. Okay. So the point of the story, the very colorful story of Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon going to Rome to have that decree against Jewish observance in the Holy Land, to have it annulled, was that while he was there, Rabbi Elazar saw the curtain that the Romans had taken, the curtain that separated, this beautiful, beautiful, very heavy curtain that separated between the Holy and the Holy of Holies in the Second Temple. Why is that important? So Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Yosei, said, "I saw the curtain in Rome. And on the curtain were several drops of blood from the bull and the goat of Yom Kippur. And this shows that the blood was actually sprinkled on the curtain, not merely in front of the curtain. Now the Gemara questions this conclusion. But how can Rabbi Elazar be sure that these drops of blood were from the bull and goat of Yom Kippur? Perhaps they were from the bull for an unwitting communal sin, or the goats for a sin of idolatry, both of whose blood is also sprinkled on the curtain. Those are animal offerings that are brought when the leadership makes a mistake of some sort and the whole community ends up committing a transgression. That's the bull for the unwitting communal sin, or the goats for if the whole community then came to engage in idolatry, they would have to bring a special goat for that. Their blood is also sprinkled in the sanctuary, but in a very different manner than the blood of the bull and the goat on Yom Kippur. The basic difference is that the bull and the goat for those mistakes is sprinkled from much further away near the incense altar, which is near the door of the sanctuary. And the blood that's sprinkled on Yom Kippur is done right at the curtain. So it's going to create a different pattern when it reaches the curtain, as we'll see. And the Gemara explains that he saw these sprinklings of blood were performed in their order, one drop after another, a sequence that is followed only in the Yom Kippur service, meaning he would do like up and down, up and down, up and down. He's very close to the curtain, so there was like a line of these drops of blood from the bull and the goat on those curtains. Whereas if it was from these other offerings, the bull of unwitting communal sin or the goat of the sin of idolatry, which is sprinkled from much further away, it would just be like a light splatter, a few drops here and there, and not, concentrated in a line in the middle. Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Yosei, said, I saw the curtain in Rome, and there were several drops of blood on it from the bull of an unwitting communal sin and for the goats of the sin of idolatry. And the Gemara asks, but how could he identify the source of the blood? Perhaps they were from the bull and goat of Yom Kippur. And the Gemara answers, he saw that they were performed not in their order, and inferred that they must be sprinklings from communal sin offerings, which are not presented in sequence, right? They were just much more spread out. The Gemara asks a question. What should the high priest do if the blood of the bull became mixed with the blood of the goat before he finished all the sprinklings? And Rava said he should present from the mixture once upward and 7 times downward, and that counts for both this and that one as he has sprinkled for both of them. So we discussed yesterday that he first brings in the blood of the bull inside the Holy of Holies, right? Then he goes out, puts it down on a stand, takes the other, puts it on a stand, takes the other vessel with the blood of the goat, goes in the Holy of Holies, does that sprinkling, comes out, takes the blood of the bull from the first pedestal, sprinkles that on the curtain, puts that down, takes the other vessel with the blood of the goat, sprinkles that on the curtain. Those are the 4 sprinklings. And only then, after all of that, as we'll see later today, he mixes the blood together and he applies that mixture to the incense altar, and I think then later also the outer altar, the large altar where animal offerings are brought. In both cases, to make an atonement for any impurities that were brought on the altar. So at the end of all the sprinkling, he mixes those bloods together. What if he mixed them together before he completed the sprinklings in the curtain? Because he got mixed up. As we talked yesterday, he's fasting all day, he's running around, he's doing so many things, he could get confused and make a mistake. So what if he mixed those bloods together before he had finished the 4 sprinklings? What should he do? And Rava said, okay, so then he takes the mixture and he does the 1 up and 7 down with the mixture, and he says, okay, this counts for both the bull sprinkling and the goat sprinkling. They said this answer before Rabbi Yirmiyah in the land of Israel, whereupon he said, foolish Babylonians, because they live in a dark land, they speak darkened halachas, darkened laws, devoid of logic, devoid of light. If this solution is followed, when the high priest sprinkles the mixture of the bull and goat blood, he thereby presents the upward sprinklings of the goat before he sprinkles the downward presentations of the bull. And the Torah said, and when he has finished atoning for the sacred place, which teaches he finishes the blood of the bull by sprinkling up and down, and only then he finishes the blood of the goat. Rather, says Rabbi Yirmiyah, the high priest proceeds like this. He presents once upward and 7 times downward for the purpose of sprinkling the blood of the bull, as the blood of the bull is in the mixture. And he again presents once upward and 7 times downward for the purpose of sprinkling the blood of the goat. And although the two bloods are mixed together, and by sprinkling for the purpose of the bull's blood, he also sprinkles some of the goat's blood, since he has only the bull's blood in mind, it is as though he did not sprinkle the blood of the goat at all. So his intentionality is in play once it's mixed, but he's saying, okay, now I'm intending to just do the sprinklings for the purpose of the bull blood, and now I'm intending to do sprinklings for the goat blood. Okay. Now I'm near the end, actually, of our page, on the B side of page 57. The Mishnah, and so if you have questions and comments, get them in, because I'm coming to the end. The Mishnah states that after the high priest sprinkled the blood toward the curtain, he poured the blood of the bull into the blood of the goat. And the Gemara comments, we learn this Mishnah in accordance with the opinion of the one who said that the high priest mixes the two types of blood before placing them on the corners of the inner altar, the incense altar that stood in the sanctuary, and he does not present each one separately. I just told you a minute ago that once he's finished with the sprinklings, he mixes the two bloods together and then puts that on the corners of the altar. How do we know he mixes them together? Maybe he has to apply the blood of the bull onto the corners of the altar and then the blood of the goat. This is being derived right now. As it was stated, the later Tanaim, the rabbis of the Mishnah, the later ones, Rabbi Yosei and Rabbi Yonasan debated this issue. One of them said, the high priest mixes the blood for the purpose of placing the blood on the altar's corners, and one of them said he does not mix the blood. And the Gemara comments, conclude that Rabbi Yosei was the one who said the high priest mixes the blood. In general, Rabbi Yochai maintains that whenever a verse mentions two matters, although the term together is not written explicitly, it is considered as though the term together is indeed written. In other words, two items that appear in the same verse are treated as combined unless it's expressly stated otherwise. By contrast, Rabbi Yonasan maintains that even if two matters are mentioned together in a verse, they're going to be treated separately unless the verse includes the term together. In this case, the verse states, and he shall take the blood of the bull and the blood of the goat. And let's actually get that full verse so it makes a little more sense. We have it at the beginning of the chapter. These verses are just written, so that they're there for our convenience. And there shall be no man in the tent of meeting when he, the high priest, goes in to make atonement in this sacred place until he comes out and has atoned for himself and his household and for the assembly of Israel. And he shall go out to the altar that is before the Lord and make atonement for it. And he shall take of the blood of the bull and of the blood of the goat and put it on the corners of the altar round about. So it says he shall take the blood of the bull and he shall take of the blood of the goat and put it on the altar of on the corners of the altar. So does he mix it together and then apply once? Or does he take first the blood of the bull and then the blood of the goat? So Rabbi Yoshai says he mixes it and just does one application on the corners. And Rabbi Yonasan says no, he does the blood of the bull on each of the corners and then the blood of the goat on each of the corners. And the Gemara rejects this contention, Rabbi Yonasan's view. Even if you say, the Gemara rejects this contention. Even if you say that the Mishnah is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yonasan, it remains possible to explain its ruling that it's a mixture, since it is different here as it is written once, which indicates that there must be one act of sprinkling and not two. Consequently, the high priest must mix the blood to ensure that there is only one presentation, even though it's not implied that these two things have to be done together. And the Gemara comments, it was taught in a Baraisa contrary to our response, but in accordance with the initial assumption. And he shall go out to the altar that is before the Lord and make atonement for it. And he shall take the blood of the bull and the blood of the goat and put it on the corners of the altar round about. And this verse teaches that the blood of the bull and the goat should be mixed. This is the statement of Rabbi Yoshai, and that is indeed the law and the way that it was done. Okay, let's go to your comments and questions. Google sign me out. Give me a moment while I sign in. This is the Google Doc that Nina and I use to talk to each other, that she passes me the questions when I'm in the office and she's in the house. Okay. Bill. The Kohen Gadol, the high priest, seems to be doing a lot of running. Right? The running is spelled out in the avoda, the divine service, as it's written out in the Machzor, in the prayer book of Yom Kippur. But since there was so much to do, yeah, he did do a lot of running. So Bill asked, what would happen, God forbid, if he collapsed from exhaustion mid-rite? Or did the sages mandate some sort of cardio routine for him in the lead-up? Well, we have the answer to your question. We have the answer to both parts of your question. First of all, he was in training, right? So during that whole week that he was sequestered, they were going over with him and having him practice all of these different services that he would have to do on the big day. Presumably, if he was smart, he wouldn't wait till that 1 week to start his training. But if it was all too much for him and he collapsed, it's not just that if he died that the deputy high priest would step in, but if he just became incapable of performing the service, that's why they have that deputy high priest, the backup high priest, who's there, all the time, ready to go and step in for just that occurrence so that the people would not be left without the atonement of Yom Kippur. Alice. My late husband should return speedily in our days to do his avoda as a Kohen. So Alice is telling us that her husband, of blessed memory, may his neshama have a great aliyah, was a Kohen, right? So all of the descendants of Aaron, are the male descendants of Aaron, who are born of Jewish mothers, are Kohanim, are priests. It's a hereditary thing. You can't become a priest if you're not born one. And so we have Kohan, often people named, not always, but usually people named Cohen are Kohanim. Also, there are other names that are associated with that, like Rappaport. Rappaports are often a Kohanim. And what do they do now when there is no temple? They do the blessing of the Kohanim for the congregation. In Israel, it's done every day. In the diaspora, it's done on holidays. And then people like me, who are Levites, on those days, we will wash the hands of the Kohen before they step in front of the congregation to do the blessing. Carolyn, how could a demon be distinguished? How could they have known to trust, cooperate with one? What a good question. What a good question. How could they have known that he was legit? Why was he sent? Right? Like, why would God send a demon to do a job? And it's almost like, and maybe that Rabbi Shimon was right to cry about it, right? It's like we don't merit to have an angel come and help us. And this is a revealed angel, right? Not like a hidden angel who just does a job and then later you're like, oh, wow, that was an angel. But this was just a revealed supernatural being. Now, his job that he had to do, right, the miracle that was performed so that they would be in the good graces of Caesar was basically, what do you call it? What is an exorcism cure? When a person is possessed, it was a possession, right? So this demon possessed the daughter of Caesar. And so, they needed the rabbi to come in and cure her of that demonic possession. So maybe that's why a demon was necessary. How did Rabbi Shimon know that this demon could be trusted and that he would do the job? I don't know. He knew. I guess because they were there to do such an important mission on behalf of the Jewish people, and this is the manner that it was going to be done. So, he said, yes, however it needs to be done, let's do it. PK, do you think that Rome took the ark? Well, no, because Rome didn't exist at the time, or, as a Roman Empire, didn't exist at the time that the ark went into hiding. That was upon the destruction of the first temple, right? When the first temple was destroyed, the ark was probably already in hiding somewhere in the Temple Mount, or it was taken by Nebuchadnezzar into Babylonia. Those are the two views that we've encountered. The second temple is the one that would be destroyed, 480 years later by Rome. But in the second temple, the ark was never there. So the ark was not taken to Rome. But the candelabrum, right, the menorah, the golden menorah, the curtain that separated between the Holy and the Holy of Holies, and some of these other objects that were mentioned in our story today, those ended up in Rome. And finally, Charles Willery. So the demon was there simply to possess the girl and leave. Yeah, that's what the demon was there to do. Maybe the demon was there to do a job that would be a good job, right? Like a necessary job, like he was actually performing a mitzvah on behalf of the Jewish people. So maybe this was a redemption opportunity for that demon. Maybe. I'm just speculating. I have no idea. Okay, that's what I've got for us today. With God's help, we'll be together again tomorrow, Tuesday night at the regular time, 6 p.m. Pacific, for page 48 here in Tractate Yoma. Have a great night.